Hello there and welcome back to an exciting episode of Check with Tech, your guide to all things tech. I'm your host Yaseen Azzam, and let's get to it, shall we? First things first, Microsoft did two changes that absolutely blew my mind. First one is that they'll actually change the logos and icons of their products. And the second one is that they just announced the Xbox Series X. Now, let's go to the first one. Yes, I'm being serious. Multiple icons of Microsoft will look brighter with better contrast and just more colorful overall. I mean, I'm looking at the pictures, and even the Windows logo itself will change. Basically, each pane or square will be a different shade of blue. But overall, these are just logos and icons that you could just stare at for hours and hours, to be honest. I mean, good job on Microsoft. They actually did something that I never thought would be possible. But it's really good. It's really colorful. One of the best contrasts I have seen. And to be honest, I just have to give props to Microsoft because, I mean, it's not easy. It's not easy to make better icons for something that you just look at for a single second and that's it. I mean, they could just not do it in the first place. I mean, their icons are pretty good now, but I mean, it's good that Microsoft keeps updating. But then now, let's go to the true headline, the Xbox Series X. So during the Game Awards, at the time of this recording yesterday, Microsoft announced the Xbox Series X, which is basically Project Scarlet. I was actually surprised by the name. I thought they ditched the X, but it's good knowing that the one won't be there for a long time. So it's good to see a little bit of change in the name. It will have a custom designed CPU, which is based on the AMD Zen 2 and the Radeon RDNA. And the Xbox will have an NVMe SSD, basically making loading times faster. The Xbox will support 8K gaming for frame rates of up to 120 in games. It will have variable refresh rate support and ray tracing. So all of that sounds really good, but they didn't specify the GPU performance until now. But we do have a hint that it could be capable for 12 teraflops of GPU performance, basically 2 times faster than the Xbox One X and 8 times the GPU power of the regular Xbox One. Can you believe it? I mean, to be honest, I don't think that loading or lag will be a thing in the future. But then GameSpot says that the console is around as wide as the Xbox One controller and 3 times as tall. And with that, Microsoft also revealed a new Xbox wireless controller, basically making it more comfortable for more people. And it has a new share button for catching screenshots and video recordings, just like the PS4. And of course, you can share it to your friends. It's a little bit smaller. That's what I get. But it's almost the same other than that. Looking at pictures and clips of the Xbox, I can definitely tell you that it kinda looks like a PC. Maybe even the trash can Mac Pro, but it's not a trash can. It's a rectangular prism. You can put it either vertically or horizontally, so it's up to you. But I'd actually prefer it vertically. It would make sense once you see the pictures. And what do I think of it? I mean, I definitely not tried it. It's releasing next year. But I am certain that it's going to be fast. Microsoft says that it will be the fastest, most powerful console, even more than the PlayStation 5, which we really don't know about. But I'm not sure how Microsoft is this confident in its console when they don't know the competition. But it's interesting to see that gaming is almost like merging together. I mean, now consoles look like PCs and PCs look like consoles. When will it finally be in one? And that's cloud gaming. So it will be interesting to see the new Xbox Series X in motion. Taking a break from Microsoft, let's go back to the usual Apple. Now, in December 10, they released the 2019 Mac Pro and the Pro Display XDR. You guys know them, right? The cheese grater and, the world's most expensive stand ever for a monitor. The Pro Display XDR starts at $5,000, and it has a nano texture version with an extra $1,000 for that. So basically, you're buying a monitor and a stand for $6,000. Oh, okay. Now here's the thing: if at some point that nano texture monitor gets dirty and you want to clean it with water and a microfiber cloth, don't do that. Seriously. Apple says that you should only use the cloth that comes in the box and nothing else. So if you lose it and you need to clean the monitor, you are done for. And especially considering the fact that if you do lose it, it's not available on an Apple Store or just Amazon. You have to contact Apple support line for replacement. And to be honest, all of this sounds worrying because every time I get an extra microfiber cloth, I just throw it in the trash because I use the one cloth that I normally use. But here you have to take extra special care. But then again, I don't think everyone will buy the Pro Display XDR. I mean, it does look good. I mean, this conversation is basically over by now. We've talked about it for a while. I think since summer. But yeah, you should only clean it with the dry polishing cloth that comes with the display and nothing else. Please, you don't want to lose $6,000. Trust me. So now let's go over to Redmi. Redmi just released their new K30 5G. It's basically the same as the regular K30, but it has 5G, and it's barely more expensive, but not as expensive as the iPhones and the Samsungs of this year. So what does it have? It has a Snapdragon 765G. Basically, it's better than the K30G that was found in the Redmi K30, the old one. Both of them will have MIUI 11, 6 or 8 gigabytes of RAM, 64 all the way to 250 gigs of UFS 2.1 storage, a 6.67 inches of LCD display, having HDR10 and 120 Hz. You heard me right, 120 Hz. How is this possible? But okay, both of them have a 4,500 mAh battery with 27 watt charging on the regular K30 and 30 watts for the K35G. 2 cameras on the front, basically a hole punch cutout, kind of like the S10. 20 megapixel and the 2 megapixel camera for portrait. And then on the back you have 4 cameras. 64 megapixel f1.89 regular camera, an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle lens, f2.2 and 120 degree field of view, 5 megapixel super macro lens, 2.4 f2.4 and a 2 megapixel f2.4 depth of field lens. That was a lot, but the most important thing about this phone is that it has a headphone jack. I mean, it's super rare to find a headphone jack nowadays with two true wireless earbuds, AirPods Pro, Galaxy Buds, the Surface Buds, those things. But that was a lot, and especially considering the price, it's absolutely worth it, to be honest. So for the regular Redmi K30, it will start at around $227, and for the Redmi K30 5G, which is releasing next January, that will be $280. Sometimes it's companies like Xiaomi and Redmi that make phones that's actually worth the price. I mean, to be honest, it's a little scary to have phones that cost $200, $150, $300 maximum. And to be honest, there has to be like a feeling of quality to the price. I mean, there is a thing as a too cheap phone. I mean, if it's for example, let's say $1, nobody would buy it because it's ridiculously cheap. So I'm afraid that at some point will happen to Xiaomi and Redmi, because they're making amazing phones, but it's just that most people don't know, because they know nothing about technology. They just want a good looking phone. Yeah. Now, remember when I talked about the fact that people with 13-inch MacBook Pros used to shut down immediately? Well, now we have something. I'm not sure if it's worse or more bearable, but it exists for some reason. And now there are lots of users with their 16-inch MacBook Pros complaining that when they're playing a certain audio and video, when the file stops playing, sometimes they hear the speakers pop, and I have no idea why. Basically, when you're using Final Cut Pro X, Logic Pro X, QuickTime Player, music, movies, and other, it has basically something to do with software. Apple did say that they're working on a fix for that, but I mean, to be honest, a lot of things happened with MacBooks over time. Apple is investigating that problem, and if you do have that problem, I mean, unfortunately right now there is no fix, but hopefully it will come as soon as it can. But I wonder what the reason is, because it doesn't happen like every time the speakers make audio. It doesn't happen every time, so it's weird. Whenever you're doing playback, it does that for some reason. But do not, I repeat, do not do anything with your 16-inch MacBook Pros, because this is something that has to do with software. It's not a problem with your speakers. It's just Apple made a problem or something. They're trying to fix it. So please don't do any service, or don't replace them. It will happen again. So just stick with it until Apple releases a new update. And that does it for this week's podcast. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. Be sure to check out the other episodes, and don't be afraid to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Again, I will see you on the phone awards this year. If you don't know what they are, they're basically polls that I tweet on Twitter every 3 days, where you get to decide which phone is the best in which category. Right now, the final poll is up right now, and one vote, probably yours, could change everything. So I will see you on December 31st when it comes out. And this is Yaseen Azzam signing off. See you next weekend.